Welcome to the Disability Partnership Calderdale August 2023 podcast. In this podcast, we'll be bringing you a range of upcoming events in the Calderdale area that you might be interested in, plus a couple of accessibility reports on Calderdale parks, and we'll be throwing in some local disability-themed news items as well. But we'll start off with events and things to do. Coming up in September and October, we've got a 6-week wheelchair skills course. It's run by an organisation called Experience Community. This course will take place over a 6-week period and will include aspects such as appropriate pushing technique, manoeuvring in tight spaces, through doors, and negotiating slopes, steps, and more difficult terrain. It's all happening at St Michael's Parish Church Hall, Mythenroyd. That's near Hebden Bridge. There's a car park at the front which is free for blue badge holders and some additional parking available close by. So it's a 6-week course run on Tuesdays from the 5th of September through to the 10th of October, 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. You need to pre-book this. The course is free of charge, but you need to contact Experience Community to get your booking in. The booking email is info@experiencecommunity.co.uk. That's info@experiencecommunity.co.uk. The next Disability Partnership Calderdale Open Meeting will be on Tuesday, 22nd of August. We'd love you to join us for this friendly sociable get-together, which is free to attend. It includes a free buffet, and you can also claim your travel expenses. We'll obviously begin by enjoying a relaxed buffet lunch with you before moving on to our familiar questions and answers sessions and presentations. This meeting will include a presentation by Pauline Connolly from Calderdale Sign Language Interpreting, and she'll be talking about the Calderdale Sign Language Service. As usual, we'll also make time to have a chat with you as a group and meet everyone one-to-one, so you can share any private issues with us or just have a chat. So the date again is Tuesday, 22nd of August. The venue, the King's Centre, Park Road, Halifax, HX1 2TS. If you don't know the King's Centre, it's a very accessible venue, shallow entry ramp, accessible toilets, and we're on the ground floor throughout. So the timings on the day: doors open at 12 noon. Buffet will be served pretty much immediately then, and the main meeting and presentations will run between 1 and 2 o'clock. Just a reminder, travel expenses, these are available for any Calderdale residents with a disability who use public transport to visit the meeting. Simply bring along your travel receipts, and we'll reimburse you at the meeting, including your homeward fare. Refreshments, so the free buffet before the meeting includes hot and cold drinks and some vegetarian options. No need to book, just simply turn up on the day. So yeah, be good to see you Tuesday, 22nd of August at the King's Centre, Park Road, Halifax, HX1 2TS. DEX, the Deaf Young People's organisation, is running a event at Shibden on the 2nd of September. So if you're aged 17 to 30, deaf, and living in or able to travel to Yorkshire, come and join them for this completely free event. It's a walk and a picnic at the popular Shibden Park near Halifax, home to Shibden Hall. The date is Saturday, 2nd of September, and it runs from 12:30 to 4 p.m. You can meet at Halifax train station at 12:30 p.m. DEX are happy to help with your travel planning and costs if necessary. To book a place, text DEX direct on 0787 404 1074. That's 0787 404 1074. And you can also email them at contact@dex, that's dex.org.uk. That's contact@dex.org.uk. Looking ahead to the new educational year, starting this autumn, Calderdale Adult Learning have released their learning disabilities courses timetable and flyer for the autumn term. Many of the courses offer early bird prices, which are available if booked and paid before the 8th of September. And there's a huge range of courses here. Catering enterprise, boost your skills in cooking, Healthy Lives, Healthy Minds, arts and crafts courses, including Christmas gifts, Harry Potter festive gifts, textiles, and some digital courses, including an animation course. All these courses, you find out more about them all by phoning Calderdale Adult Learning on 01422 392 820 or visiting the Calderdale website, which is calderdale.gov.uk/believe achieve. That's all one word. So that's calderdale.gov.uk believe achieve, all one word, and you can find out all about those courses for adults with learning disabilities coming up in the autumn term in Calderdale. So, Disability Partnership Calderdale recently visited Manor Heath Park, which is sandwiched between Skirkett Green and Savile Park, just outside the centre of Halifax. We visited the park with Alison, a local powered wheelchair user who knows the park well, and showed us around and tested the paths and walkways for accessibility. While I think about it, you can visit Alison's support and advice website, which is www.disabilityroadmap.co.uk. Good website, well worth a visit, and thanks to Alison for her support in this review of Manor Heath. So, Manor Heath, it's one of Halifax's most popular parks, owned by Calderdale Council. We started our visit in the main car park, which has 2 disability spaces. Not a huge amount of parking space there, but if you can nab one of those 2 spaces, it gives you a smooth, flat, tarmac surface access into the park. The car park's address is Manor Heath Road, Halifax, HX3OBE. There's further parking available on some of the nearby streets, though not all have drop curb access to pavements. If you have a cruise about, you'll probably find something suitable, but it's parking's not necessarily one of the strengths of Manor Heath. So, a bit of an overview, really, of the place. It's sort of split into halves, really. The upper half of the park is a mix of walled and sunken gardens, an indoor jungle experience, a cafe with toilet block. The lower half is more of a traditional parkland area with open grassland, trees, children's play area, and a nature walk. The children's play area has a range of swings, some of which are adapted for children with disabilities. The pathways through the park, not all the park's pathways are accessible for a wheelchair or a powered scooter user, but the majority are, and most of the park's main features can be reached via a network of well-surfaced routes, and there are no sort of dead ends where you're going to get trapped. There's generally a route to almost anywhere. While we were there, we had a look at the jungle experience. £1 to enter. It's an indoor... It's like a very large heated greenhouse with a mixture of plants and some animals in there. £1 to enter. Its pathways are narrow, but Alison found it relatively easy to negotiate them in her quite large powered wheelchair. So you've got exotic plants, terrapins, goldfish, and I think at certain times of the year, butterflies as well. They all enjoy the artificially warm and humid climate in there, so it's actually a good place to go if it's a wet day or perhaps in the winter and you're looking for somewhere to have a little bit of an exercise, but not necessarily outside. Right next to the jungle experience, there's a walled garden. This was another highlight of our visit. Got good access, plenty to see there. Lots of really beautiful plants, very well tended, in great condition. All the pathways are excellent there, and it's just a really nice place to be. Quite tranquil and quiet. Facilities. There's a cafe. Pretty busy on the day we visited, but that was at the start of the school holidays. Coffee was excellent. There's large entry doors to the cafe. Excellent smooth surfaces, so it's easy to gain entry in a wheelchair. The cafe building includes a block of toilets, including an accessible toilet, which the staff from the cafe will help you to get into, or you can also access using a radar key. The lower park, we had a look at the lower park as well. Fewer features there. On the day we were there was a small fun fair. Again, the pathways are well surfaced, the gradients are gentle. However, access points into this part of the park are less accessible. There's an entranceway at the bottom of the park off the road there. Fairly poor surface, cobbles, uneven paving and stones. And there's a lack of suitable parking at the bottom end of the park as well. Although you can park at the roadside, the adjacent roads are very busy. There are no drop curbs, so the transition into the park from a vehicle at that end isn't great. So summing up, Manheath and its attractions are very accessible for most wheelchair and powered scooter users. Gradients mostly gentle. There's only a limited amount of disability parking, and that is potentially an issue. But if you can get into one of those two spots at the top, brilliant, you will get straight into the park. So yeah, relatively friendly place for people with disabilities and mobility issues, and a very well tended and pleasant place to visit pretty much all year round. Now, turning from events and activities, there are also a number of news items that have caught our attention in the last few days, starting with a new advocacy service being launched in our area. Now, the Royal Association for Deaf People and Cloverleaf Advocacy are combining to provide a new independent advocacy service for deaf people in Calderdale. An advocate is someone who supports people to feel in control when they're not being listened to by people making decisions about their lives. So the advocates involved in this either hold a professional advocacy qualification or they're working towards it, and they're either deaf themselves or fluent in British Sign Language. So if you're interested to know what an advocate will do for you, they can represent your views, decisions and wishes. They make sure you know your rights. They can look at your options and choices for you, and then help you feel in control and empowered. They will be able to access and understand information on your behalf by translating written English into British Sign Language. And obviously they can look at things like making sure reasonable adjustments are being made for you. So how do we get in touch with them for this? Quite simple. You just email advocacy, that's advocacy at royaldeaf, or one word, .org.uk. You can also contact Cloverleaf Advocacy direct. They're based in Halifax and they're on 01422 849 589, and their email address is Calderdale Advocacy, or one word, at cloverleaf-advocacy.co.uk. That's Calderdale Advocacy at cloverleaf-advocacy.co.uk, and that's an advocacy service for people who have a hearing impairment. A news story that caught our eye recently came from Calderdale Council. They've announced the Victoria Theatre in Halifax will gain a couple of accessible toilets. So there are wider plans to improve the facilities and visitor experience at the Victoria Theatre. Planning approval's been granted and a contractor is due to be appointed in autumn to carry out the works. So amongst the plans are a new box office on Commercial Street, and the improvement to the foyer and cafe bar area. But the stuff that really caught our eye, access improvements. There's going to be a new lift taking visitors to the green room bar for the first time in the venue's history, and 2 new accessible toilets being installed. It's a venue we're very familiar with. I think a lot of people are very familiar with the limitations of this venue. So this is pretty good news, that such an important venue is going to get this key upgrade with some real accessibility gains in it as well. Now, you've possibly seen on our website recently guides to a couple of Calderdale's parks that we've been doing. We've been looking at generally the accessibility of places like Shibden Park, and providing little guides to help our members and people generally to understand how accessible they are, and what it'd be like to actually visit these parks. Now, we paid a visit in mid-July to Wellhome Park in Brighouse, and unlike some of our other visits, this wasn't a great park at all. It has some real limitations, and actually we ended up sending an independent report to Calderdale Council and to some of the councillors in that area. Just briefly to summarise, what we found was car parking at the park extremely limited. So this is Wellhome Parking, Brighouse. Car parking very limited. You can get in from the superstore, the Tesco Superstore car park, which is adjacent to the park, but the main access to the park is a pedestrian crossing, which leads to a ramp. However, there are no drop curbs from the pavement areas in the car park. So if you want to get out of the car park in a wheelchair, for example, and get into the park, you actually have to travel along the roadway. And this is an extremely busy bit of roadway with people coming and going from the Tesco Superstore at all times. So accessibility at the Brighouse end of the park, not great. The second car park is off Thornhill Beck Lane, which is at the other end of the park. As you're leaving Brighouse, it's at the far end. This is not a great car park at all. The surface is gravel with some potholes, so it's quite awkward for wheelchairs and for motor scooters. And to actually access the park itself, you have to go through a full-size metal 5-bar gate with a sprung-loaded bolt. This is large, heavy, unwieldy, and I think probably potentially dangerous in windy conditions. And in addition to this, access to this gate on the car park side is through a narrow gap between two huge concrete blocks. This gap's wide enough for a wheelchair, but cars are free to park directly in front of this gap, so effectively they can block it. So a wheelchair user could potentially gain access to the car park via the heavy gate and through the gap, and then find on trying to exit the park that these gaps have been blocked by a parked car. So effectively, you would be trapped in the car park. So we didn't let the poor access at either end deter us. We thought we'll still have a good look around the park. And again, we found more accessibility problems. So the main park's divided into two roughly equal size areas by a stream that runs through the middle of it. There are two bridges to cross the stream. The one at the Tesco end of the park is a narrow wooden structure. Both ends of this bridge have lips. On one side, it's just about negotiable with care by a powered wheelchair, but at the other end, there's a significantly larger and more abrupt lip, and this is not negotiable. So again, a bit like the car parking, you've got the possibility of a wheelchair user could cross the bridge in one direction, only to find themselves trapped on the other side, unable to return over the bridge. And there's a second bridge, a larger bridge further upstream. This is much wider. And looks potentially better. However, it's got very similar issues. The ramps on both sides leading up over the stream are too steep to be safely or comfortably used by any kind of wheelchair. And on one side, again, there's a significant lip. Our wheelchair user, Alison, found approaches to both sides of the bridge also had exposed cambers leading them into the stream. So potentially really quite a dangerous scenario trying to cross that bridge. So a non-starter, really. We looked further at access from the A641 road, which runs along the side of the park. But again, we didn't find anything that was particularly useful there. There's an absence of drop curbs. And there's no pelican or zebra crossing either. So it's a busy road, not really accessible from that side of the park at all. Finally, we had a quick look at the cafe. Lovely cafe in many ways, great staff. However, the approach to the sales window is via a steep ramp, not accessible easily by a wheelchair at all. And the main seating area has an exposed edge to it, approximately 2 meters in length, off which a wheelchair could fall, and there's absolutely nothing to stop a wheelchair rolling off that. So again, a couple of issues and hazards there just make the cafe a hazardous place to visit. So yeah, Wellhome Park, not an accessible park. Like I say, we've sent a report off to the council and local councillors just outlining some of our concerns, and we've already heard back from them that they're going to be having a look at that. So yeah, don't go to Wellhome Park, but hopefully things will improve in the future. So thanks for joining us for this Disability Partnership Calderdale podcast. We've enjoyed your company. We hope you enjoyed it. As ever, there's a lot more news and events and activities available on our website. That's disabilitypartnershipcalderdale.org. We're updating that on a pretty much a daily basis, and we've got a presence on Facebook and Twitter as well. And we can also recommend you sign up for our email newsletter. We do a weekly email newsletter, and the sign up link for that is on the homepage of our website, and that's completely free. So you head over to disabilitypartnershipcalderdale.org for more news and to sign up for our newsletter. Thanks again for your company, and we'll see you again next month.